Hello. Today I'll talk about the last two episodes of Season 1 and the first two episodes of Season 2, and I will try not to gush too much about On the Road to Find Out. But before I get to On the Road to Find Out, I have to get to break on through to the other side, the plot of which is Miss Davenport gets trapped in the Krista, in the system of the Krista, as the honest trailer for the movie Solo, A Star Wars Story would put it, the sentient being trapped in the Krista. She does this through some kind of magic chair that absorbs her, kind of. And this is the purpose of this chair and the purpose of the room that she and Bova stumble upon, like it's the room of requirement at Hogwarts, is Thelma is programmed to go every week, I guess, and captain's log, ship's log, not captain, she's not the captain, kind of a ship's log thing. She uploads her memory to the Krista so that the history is recorded. And Bova and Miss Davenport are out in the middle of the night one night. Now, how weeks and nights have value on the Krista out in space, I don't quite understand, but it's science fiction logic. They catch her uploading her memory, but she doesn't see them. She walks out of this kind of phasing in and out doorway that appears in the Krista's wall, and they decide to investigate without asking her what it is, because if characters in science fiction and fantasy don't do those sorts of things, you don't have stories. And so they go in. Miss Davenport sits down on the mystery chair. Bova pushes buttons, and Miss Davenport is now part of the Krista, which is it's Elmira's prediction from the first episode with Elmira. She says, talks about Miss Davenport's ghost on every wall, that sort of thing. This is also something that happens to Miss Davenport. Something similar happens to her in Season 2. I don't know if it's connected to the Krista, but it's the one where she makes her brain really big. I guess I'll get to that episode eventually. The story. So so she gets trapped in the Krista. Bova leaves the room. It doesn't say how, because I think the door re-solidifies before. So it doesn't say how he leaves the room, but he has to leave the room because, again, no story if he doesn't. So now that so that's they eventually figure out Miss Davenport is on the wall. In fact, I think Goddard is the one who figures it out first, because he sends the kids back to sleep. They all search the ship for her. They don't find her. He sends the kids back to sleep. He keeps looking, and he finds her in the system on the screens, and he mutes her because apparently she won't stop talking. It's a common sort of joke that when you can mute a woman, you do. So they eventually all get up and find her, and the story covers how they try to find the room. Thelma, having uploaded her memory, has no memory of what's happened, and therefore she assumes that she's malfunctioning, which is something that she's had issues with ever since Harlan stepped on the crystal that goes in her head. And it's kind of similar to the pilot episode where she decides that since she's a robot, only 3 of them are the same species of alien, so they're all different from each other, but she's a robot and they are living. Of course, the Krista is part living matter, we find out. So, but she feels separate from them. She feels that they consider her separate from them, and so she resigns herself to having to separate herself from them, in this case, to leave the Krista, and chase a satellite that they passed that will, she supposes, lead her to her next purpose, and then she almost gets sucked into a black hole. But it's kind of similar to the pilot episode where they're going to sell her in order to get Radu back, because they sold Radu, and they have no compunction about selling her, and they never apologize for selling her. And in this one, once again, they make her feel, they don't explicitly say what she infers when they say, you're relieved of duty, we can't trust you right now because we don't know what's going on, but they must have learned by now that she will take things literally and she will go too far. And she does, and she leaves the ship. And they have to get her back. And Bova has a nice heroic moment at the end because Commander Goddard's spacesuit rips. So Bova gets to be the hero and do the big heroic gesture at the end of this one. A couple of interesting things I wrote down. Catalina says she'd love to visit Susie's dimension, and which led me to write, is that possible? We know that they can switch places in an extreme situation, so I guess that is possible. It's a human consciousness merging with technology story. I wrote that down. That's a more and more common sort of trope. The only movie that comes to mind is Transcendence, but there are many. The Krista is already semi-sentient. It's what I kind of said before. Thelma has already said the Krista is an excellent judge of character, which implies that it has a will of its own. In the next episode, she says it's moving away from her sister ship of its own accord because it knows that the other Krista is going to explode. So it's human consciousness merging with technology, but the Krista is kind of human itself, or at least alien, something more than spaceship. I wrote down Thelma reminds me of Wanda from Wishbone. I think that's mostly because of the look of the character and implied short hair in her head's design, which Wanda from Wishbone does, and I'll be talking a lot more about Wishbone in the coming months. Between this and the pilot, Thelma is very self-sacrificial. Okay, I got that. The sequences where Thelma is swimming around in space are pretty eerie. I think I was a little freaked out by them when I was a kid. Sonic waves and so Catalina and Harlan and Radu, Catalina and Radu mostly, they come up with the idea that they can behave kind of like a bat whale with their combined powers. Catalina bounces sonic waves off the wall. Radu listens for where the wall is hollow, implying a hidden room. And there's a nice joke about it's the three of them, so Harlan is there too. Harlan says, "What'll I do?" Catalina says, "Knowing you, take credit." And that's a great joke. Let's see. Bova gets the hero thing. And Radu also does a nice heroic thing because Bova goes and is floating out in space to get Wanda, but then Thelma, I'm going to start calling her Wanda now, and then the cord that's holding him in the ship breaks, and Radu, the super strong one, dives for it, and he's able to pull Bova back, and both of them back. So Radu and Bova get some nice hero moments in this one. Moving on to my favorite episode of television, possibly. And I don't feel at all embarrassed that it's from a mid-90s children's science fiction show on Nickelodeon. It's called On the Road to Find Out. It is the season finale of Act 1. Season 1. I'm already getting verklempt. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of the first time that we see a wrecked Krista set, like what the Krista would look like if it was actually attacked, because the whole idea, the plot of the episode, I'll start with that, is that the Krista meets another Krista amidst the shards of a destroyed Spung kill cruiser and decides to say hello. And then not all the crew, but half the crew goes aboard the other Krista to search it, and it's been, on the outside it looks fine, but on the inside it's been gutted. And it looks, at least the command post looks, and so that must have been, it's interesting. It's kind of like seeing the evil version of a character. It's seeing the destroyed version, the apocalyptic version of a set. Harlan and Radu making progress. They kind of split up to search for things that they can use from this ship that looks like the Krista, but is no longer functional and therefore doesn't need its stuff anymore. And Harlan wishes Radu good luck. And he's got some progress on their relationship. We start to see more we've seen a little bit of flirtation between him and Catalina, but we see more of it as the episode progresses. In fact, it's a little bit, just a tiny bit heavy-handed for maximum impact at the end. Let's see. There's a John Milton reference. Comes from Miss Davenport, of course, who probably loves English culture in 2265, approximately when the show takes place, but is still stuck in the 1800s when it comes to her references. Thelma talks to herself a lot. I wrote, it's just, and I guess this is part of the Um, it's part of making sure that the viewing audience, knows what's going on. She's gives herself, but it's also part of her making sure that she records the history so that she can upload it to the ship. She talks to herself a lot. Let's see. Harlan also he's learning to be respectful. This is his arc. He's got to learn to be not such a hot dog and to give credit where it's due and to let other people shine. And so he wishes Radu good luck, and he tells Catalina she's not as crazy as he thought when she first met him. And Susie calls Harlan cute. Catalina translates that. It comes out of Catalina's mouth, but Susie says Harlan looks cute when he discovers something or something like that. And once again, it's a shame they couldn't keep Susie a mystery, because if Susie says Harlan's cute and we don't know for sure that she's real, it's kind of like weird cute. It's quirky cute. It's because it's coming from Catalina, we think maybe. Anyway, it's yeah. So Catalina explains that they're in parallel dimensions, she and Susie, and their brainwaves are in tune. So we finally get a more concrete explanation of Susie, at least the most concrete until the next episode. Let's see. Oh, and of course, this is the return of Warlord Shank and return of George Takei. And there's some stuff on the space. There's some trivia on this episode's page on the spacecasestv.com about things that George Takei did and things that are funny because it was George Takei doing them. And I'm not going to go into them, but I recommend seeking that out. But this was the first. This show was the first of a lot of things for me, and one of the things, Warlord Shank is pointing his weapon at Harlan. He wants Harlan to tell him about the Krista because Catalina, who could do a better job of it, is knocked out. And Harlan says, "You can torture me. I'm not going to tell you anything." And he says, "Who said anything about torturing you?" And then he points the weapon at Catalina. And this is the first time when I was a little kid that I saw, oh, it's worse to watch someone else get tortured than to be tortured yourself. That's more of an incentive to get you to talk. And that hadn't occurred to me. I lived a very fortunate life that had not occurred to me. It might still not have occurred to me if not for that episode. But that was a kind of a shocking thing. He's a scary character for kids, and George Takei's voice and just he's great at acting. So he made it even more menacing. It might have been too scary for most kids, but then again, the show was for older, like preteens, early teens. I don't know. I don't know how to judge when shows are aiming at audience-wise. Let's see. Sonic frequency. This was also just a little bit weird. Warlord Shank and Commander Goddard meet eventually after Shank has captured everyone else, and Goddard's the only one who hasn't been captured, and they introduce each other. They introduce themselves, and they've already met in the previous episode, but and they even re-edited the episode after they filmed this one. They filmed a little bit of George Takei doing his lines from that episode so that they could insert the video in and it wouldn't just be a voiceover. And so they've seen each other's faces, presumably, and spoken when Shank was threatening to blow up the Krista after they returned Elmira. But they introduced themselves again. So I don't know, that might have been an oversight as they were writing the episode and they hadn't inserted that bit into the earlier episode, but still it was a little weird to see. Let's see. And one of my favorite Bova moments. Warlord Shank zaps the ground to show how powerful his weapon is, and Bova goes, 20,000 volts? Baby food. And then when he's going to zap Rosie and Miss Davenport, because they come onto the ship, Bova jumps in the middle, gets hit by the blast, and then blasts Warlord Shank, and it's the coolest moment for Bova. And back when Bova was my favorite character, it was the coolest moment of the show. Might still be. Let's see. The reason Rosie and Miss Davenport come over, they had been left behind with Bova because they're the younger kids and she's minding them on the ship, and she probably also doesn't want the adventure. but they come over because Thelma uploads a message from the crew of that ship into the Krista, and they find out that the ship is going to explode. And so they go over to inform the people who are there who might die if it explodes. And so that's why they are there in the first place. And that's drives they never tell Warlord Shank. And I never did. So Elmira's there and Warlord Shank's there. When we last saw them together, they were in separate ships, and we could assume that she was captured after the Krista flew through the White Circle in that episode, or she was tracked down, or maybe she saw that other ship, thought it was the Krista, docked with it, and that's why he attacked that ship. But this time, that ship, since it was crewed by people who knew, they attacked back and they destroyed his. I don't know, but I found myself wondering, why is she there too, and why was he torturing her? What could she know about the weapon systems on the ship, especially if he presumably knew that he thought it was the same ship. I don't know. Not enough to make it not my favorite thing. So the episode ends with the assumed death of Catalina, and then Walter Jones, and I think Paige Christina is the name of the actor who plays Rosie. I want to make sure I got that right. Paige Christina. And everybody's doing their best. They're doing the eulogy part, but those two in particular were really great, Walter Jones and Paige Christina. And then, surprise, when a character dies in science fiction, she's not really dead. But she's also not really there. Who is it? It's Susie. And that takes us into season 2. But do you guys see, have I conveyed why this is my favorite episode? Maybe not. But you can ask further questions in the comments. Let's see. So, let me see if there's anything more I want to say about that, because there's plenty more that I want to say about it, but anything that would be important. No, I can't think of anything. Let's see. So, new places, new faces. Now, Susie's costume in this is very cool, but for some reason, she doesn't wear it after the first episode. They put her in the same jumpsuit that the other kids wear. The kids are wearing new jumpsuits too, and there's a general shift in the look of the set. And in the show, and before I read the trivia, they're crash landing. The Krista is overheated on the outside. It changes its look presumably because it gets burned. I could accept that as a kid. Thelma goes with it, which is interesting because she's not actually being burned, but Harlan has a great line. I knew you were in tune with the Krista, but wow, or something like that. And it's a neat moment for Thelma to start shaking and the special effects changing her costume up from the ground. This was a very expensive show, but apparently, at least according to the trivia on the site, Nickelodeon felt that the ship looked too creepy for younger viewers, and that's what I liked about it. And I was one of the younger viewers, but that's just interesting. But again, I'm not angry that I had to look at a different looking ship. It's fine with me. It's the whole. I mean, I understand it better now that this is how things work. That things change over time, new sets and and whatnot. But it's just, and I can understand. I think Nick was pretty young back then. Itself, the channel was young, and it wasn't sure. I think now, more weirder and slightly more disturbing is more accepted in kids' fare. I don't know. I'm not an expert in it, but I prefer the old look of the Krista. But I was fine with the new one. It didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that it happened now. It's just. It kind of explains why this show stuck out among Nickelodeon shows. There's a video on my channel earlier from I think October or September about Alex Mack and Alan Strange and Shelby Woo. I liked shows on Nickelodeon, but this one really stuck out and stuck with me. And so I guess that kind of partially explains why other shows weren't allowed to be as weird and cool as this show was. But getting back to the topics at hand, um, they they crash land on a planet, but before that, they've got to stick everyone in their places where they need to be from the last adventure. It picks up right where the last one left off, and so now we have to get to know Susie a little bit. We have to learn the fate of Elmyra. I was really excited that Elmyra, the Spung character, was going to get to stick with the crew, and then she gets zapped away because as a member of the royal family, she's got a retrieval chip in her body, which wouldn't she have known before she suggested hailing the ship that was about to attack the Krista, that if they saw her, they would be able to pull her from the Krista to their own ship? Wouldn't she have known that? But people don't always, in situations like that, think everything through, and so it's understandable that she would make that mistake. If they just turned and ran, she might still be with them. But she insists that she, as a princess or whatever she is, would be able to stop them from being attacked, and she's not. So they turn and run anyway, and they end up crash landing on the ship while she bites Warlord Shank. She doesn't bite this person, but she fiddles around with the controls when she gets to that ship. Let's see. Oh, Susie says that the Krista bonded with her when it bonded with the other kids when they first came on, and it kind of makes sense that it would if she's telepathically, sonically linked to Catalina, but at the same time, she's not physically there. They all made a physical connection with the ship, and that's how they bonded. So, again, nitpicking, but still, got to talk about something. Let's see. The crash landing, because they crash through clouds. It's a very cloudy, kind of moist planet. And it reminded me of when Luke crashes into Dagobah in his X-Wing, except it was drawn out for much longer, so that they could have Harlan and Radu have funny banter about where to crash land. And that's not the only thing that resembles something that Luke encounters, because the monster in the one-eyed monster in the quicksand that almost swallows Thelma looks like the one-eyed monster in the first Star Wars movie that almost eats Luke. Susie has gills. That's her weird alien thing, and her hair is kind of like a... we were going to make her rainbow-haired like Catalina, but we quit not even halfway through. We quit 1/5 of the way through, so she only has a little bit of pink and a little bit of blue amidst her mostly brunette curls. But she's got gills. That's her alien thing. And she's got a cool costume, which she, of course, ditches, and we don't get to see. If they had it, why didn't they just let her keep wearing it? I guess for continuity among kids. She walks out onto the planet first because she can breathe no matter what, except in the vacuum of space, she says. And she detects hints of all these little things, and it's ultimately breathable for everyone. But she says she detects hints of krypton in the planet's atmosphere, which is a joke that I did not get as a little kid, and only actually recently got, and I probably only recently got it because I just watched Man of Steel. She might even have pronounced it Krypton. Anyway, she also says that the planet blocks communication with Catalina, which is confusing because, again, their relationship is not in the physical world, it is metaphysical. It is, or what if metaphysical is the word for interdimensional? Why would the planet's atmosphere block her being able to communicate with Catalina? She's then able to communicate with Catalina in a later episode when she calls her on the telephone, and why is that possible if they're interdimensional? But it's okay. It's nitpicky, but still, it's, you get older and you're still watching the same stuff and you notice new things with a more critical eye, but you still love it. Let's see. I wrote down, was Nickelodeon also behind amping up the romanced? I wrote romanced, angst, and romance in the same word. But it starts, and presumably this would have been a love triangle, Harlan, Radu, and Catalina, even before Twilight made love triangles a big thing among teenage things. Probably there was stuff before that, but still. If it's a love triangle that predates Twilight, it's more impressive. Presumably it would have been Catalina, And it doesn't entirely make sense with Susie because she's new and they don't entirely trust her. But I guess that's then the thing about teenage romance is that it can just be based on, look, new person who's attractive. There must be a crush, even though I know nothing about her and she might be dangerous. And so they explore the planet. They find a source of water. They fight a monster. It's not really a monster because it turns out it's a vegetarian. And but it leads up to one of the sweetest scenes in all of Space Cases, which and kind of is a nice turn at the end of the episode when Susie makes her entrance on the Krista in the midst of an emergency, and she's got her know-how. She knows how to do things. She wants to help. She's all super confident, and there's a job to be done. We need to do it. When things calm down, and this is where we find ourselves now. Moment. She's in a different dimension than she grew up in. She shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here either, but they know each other. They've been together. And so there's this very sweet moment when they're talking about, oh, what are we going to do with this new Susie? I miss Catalina, but we gotta make, what do we think of Susie? And she's listening around the corner, and Radu, of course, knows she's listening around the corner because he can hear her, and he welcomes her in. It's very sweet. And she says, I can read minds, but I'm not going to read your minds. You can trust me. I'm really smart. I can make you feel dumb, but I'm not going to do that either. I just want to make the best of this. And so it's a very sweet moment at the end of that episode. So I'll try to make... definitely don't have much to say about The Sporting Kind, but I'll try to make it brief because this is almost a half hour long and I want to stop talking. Sporting Kind is the name of the episode. Presumably it's the name of a song too. It is the first screen appearance of Baby Yoda. A lot of people think that Baby Yoda's first acting gig was The Mandalorian, but no, Baby Yoda is in this. It goes by the name of Romy or something. I don't know. I forget what the alien's name is, but it's played by Baby Yoda, the same actor. Look it up. So then the ship crash lands and creates technical issues, which works well for creating obstacles for plots. I wrote that down. I don't know what I was referring to specifically. But the technical issues are not addressed necessarily in this episode because a couple of Spung, not the Spung who were chasing them, but kind of, I don't know if they're rogue Spung or just less technologically, I don't know, but the couple of Spung hunters, I think, and they're looking for Baby Yoda because they want to drink its spit, which gives you superpowers. That is the plot of this episode. The Spung want the Baby Yoda so they can drink its spit and get superpowers. And Rosie just wants the Baby Yoda because it's cute. So the Spung make their way aboard the ship because they can do that because of the technical issues. And when they get to the command post, all of the male characters apparently have an established battle formation. Commander Goddard says something like, prepare, defensive, something, and they all kind of line up going like this. And Bova, of course, is in front because Bova can zap. That was an interesting thing to notice, and kind of campy. Let's see. Yeah, so I mentioned that the Spung, these are different kind of Spung, and they have the ability to shrink people. They shrink Miss Davenport. That is the incentive for the crew helping them find the Baby Yoda. And then they have this thing that can create, it's a ring. I guess it's also what shrinks them, but it shrinks them so that, and it shrinks other people so that they can compete in a maze. And so the ring kind of goes up, and then the people start glowing, and then it goes down, the people disappear, and then it creates within the ring, from the lovely blue sand of the planet, a maze, I don't think it's a maze actually, because I think it's easy to get through, but it's just, it's a bunch of walls that the miniaturized people have to run through, and then they compete. And Harlan competes with the Spung's little son, who has drunk the Baby Yoda spit, and has can do the psychic attack from Pokemon, and so it's one of those episodes. It's more fun than memorable. I only barely remember it when I'm not watching it, but it is fun to watch. The show makes a point of, or Thelma makes a point of saying that the miniaturization technology is technology developed by the same people who built the Krista, which kind of makes sense. The actor who plays the main Spung is called Marcel Jeannin. Just double check that. Which is only particularly notable. It's in the trivia on the spacecasestv.com because he was kind of the unofficial 10th cast member according to Peter David, because he's played so many other characters as well. Almost done. So in this episode, Rosie gets the big heroic moment because she drinks the Baby Yoda spit and becomes a psychic Pokemon and saves everybody. And it only goes to show what little people can do. And then the last thing I wrote down was the Space Cases really want their pets. I suppose I'm basing that on the Gurkle episode, but they didn't know it was a Gurkle. They thought it was a rock. And but it was still a cute little puppet thing. And there are more cute puppet things to come. They should just get a dog. I've been going for a really long time, so I'm just going to say, see you next time.